Right, so I'll let everybody's machines have a 30 seconds just to make sure everybody can see the presentation, but if you can't, please hollow, but it should appear on your screens and we'll make a start.
Can you see with this view if anybody's waiting?
Yeah, I can see it fine, Graham, thank you.
Good. Yeah, we're getting.
You get a notification that someone's waiting.
I should be able to let other people in if they join.
Yeah.
Right, good evening everyone. My name is Graham Hatcher. I'm the Programme Manager for Manx Utilities Smart Metering Rollout. Really happy to give this presentation. I'll admit you're a group of stakeholders that we've not got around to talking to yet, and I met a few of your members at the Renewable Heating Strategy event. So welcome to you all. I'll let Sarah give her a quick introduction and then we'll make a start.
Evening everybody, my name is Sarah Jarvis. I am the Stakeholder Engagement Manager for the programme. Sort of marketing and comms, I suppose, by any other name, but with very much with the focus of finding out who the interested parties are, whether they're pro or whether they're anti, and making sure that we communicate the details of the programme and the benefits of the programme really to that audience. So yeah, I'll be involved towards the end of the presentation.
Right, I will just like to start with an introductory video that we borrowed with permission from Western Power, and it outlines a lot of the aspects I'm sure you're aware of, but a journey which starts with the smart meter rollout, and we'll see Manx Utilities' role moving really from a network operator to a system operator to something that is currently fairly passive to something become a lot more dynamic. So I will just fire this video off. It's on the network, so it may just take a little while to load up, so please bear with. But so it sets the scene, and then we'll come back to the presentation. So the really agenda for this evening, and following on from the video from Western Power, which we sort of very much see as the future for the network here on Ireland and our responsibility and roles in it. We'll run through some of the wider benefits of smart metering. We'll talk about the new replacement to key meter system, Smarter Pay As You Go, and then look at some of the progress to date, the next steps, and then Sarah will run through the smarter living concept, the rebranding exercise there, and stakeholder engagement aspects. And then we'll close with a couple of videos which really set the scene for our rollout, and then we'll take questions, if that's okay with everyone. Is everyone still there? Because I've lost my little screen that shows you.
Yes, we're here, Graham.
That's good, thank you. So in terms of benefits, a key deliverable of this project has always been our I suppose long-suffering key meter customers. Anybody here that is currently key meter customers will be aware of the problems we've had in terms of reliability for the service which is hosted off island. We can't buy the key meters, we can just about buy the keys, but we certainly can't buy the vending terminal. So it's very much end of life, and we'll be delivering the rollout to those customers first. But for credit customers, some of the sort of key benefits is an end to estimated bills. So if your meter's currently tucked away behind a locked door or under the stairs, we won't need to send a meter reader around regularly to read that meter. We still need to do a safety inspection, which the meter readers currently do now, but that'll be in much less frequent intervals. In terms of tariffs and payment options, it becomes very much a software solution, so customers will be able to switch seamlessly between credit and prepayment, and also between tariffs. So if your sort of connection at home will take an upgrade to an EV or to sustainable generation, at the moment now we'd have to come out and change the meter. That will cease. There will still maybe a requirement for us to come out and do a safety inspection or some upgrade work, but in terms of meter sway change, that aspect's gone. And I think in terms of the environment and about using and the use of electricity as a commodity, data and presenting that data is really where we believe there's some key benefits to come. So helping customers make informed choice about energy use. And those next steps really is we're already seeing an uptake in renewable technologies, electric vehicles, and we're very much blind on the low voltage network. We've got very good visibility of power flows across our transmission system. We know the power's flowing out to the UK, we know the power flowing out the power station. When we get down to street level, we're very much in the blind. So smart metering is key to unlocking that capacity. And really this is an option for Manx Utilities to be on the stage and sort of show our commitment to climate change mitigation and how that will come together. So at the start, key deliverable is our prepayment customers, and this will also open up to small commercial customers rather. So anybody on a small single phase or a three-phase supplies will be able to pay for their energy in a pay-as-you-go mode. Customers won't have to go to the shop to top up. They'll be able to top up via the smart delivery app. Anyway, you've got a remote control sort of Wi-Fi connection, you'll be able to do that. But for those customers who are reluctant with technology or prefer to top up small amounts regularly in the shop, we'll still provide that facility. But it'll be very much about a digital solution. There'll be no keys anymore, but you will be able to pay cash in local convenience stores. Again, we're alluding to some of the benefits about visibility. We already know our prepaid customers are very much engaged with their consumption. They regularly see their balance, they regularly see how quickly their balance goes down. This smart phase solution will provide that information in a much more usable format. We will, in the fullness of time, be able to present that as a carbon use or other aspects. So pounds, pence, kilowatt hours sometimes don't mean a lot, especially when it's perhaps a business and they want to look at their carbon impact. And a key thing for, I suppose, reliability for those customers who really don't want to disconnect when they're having a shower at night or in the morning is using the digital platform to provide notifications either via the app or for customers without a smartphone via an SMS when they're running low on credit. Off the back of this, we are able to provide enhanced support for customers, and again, any of those who are key meter customers now, not all of our meters currently don't disconnect over a weekend. Some won't disconnect on a Sunday or bank holiday. So every pay-as-you-go customer in the future will have consistent rules around non-disconnection. So evening times, bank holidays, holiday periods, we won't disconnect supplies at those times when the shops are shut, and that's for everybody. But also for customers who are struggling either in terms of payment or with the technology, we can mirror what they're seeing on their app and provide assistance. And we can also look for customers who are struggling. Some of those customers you have to make that decision between to eat or to heat. We'll be able to see customers disconnecting and potentially look to engage with those at a much earlier date and provide support where we can.
Thank you.
In terms of progress, sorry, just a bit of background noise. We've appointed Holly as our meter hardware provider. This is they're not that big. In terms of big, what the devices you're on, it's on the boardroom wall for me, and it looks huge. But we're standardising our meter range. So at the moment, we've got about 55 different meter types across the wall. Key meters, renewable generation, standard domestic. We'll just be installing 4 meters going forward. So in terms of benefits to Manx Utilities, we'll only be stocking 4 devices, a standard domestic single-phase meter, a low-power 3-phase meter, and then we move into the sort of high voltage customers. So people like the hospital will be on the sort of the other variants of this meter. Trilliant are our communications provider. So we've deployed, the next slide shows you where we've deployed, but we've installed 22 access points now, so we've got really good coverage right across the island. The sort of image on the left is down at the airport. The grey image is Douglas on a summer's day, and the right image is a view of a peel from the Beery Hill. So we've deployed a low power 2.4 gigahertz. For those who've got a sort of more interest on the technology, it's an RPMA solution. So it's a random phase multiple access. So it's a point to multi-point solution. So with the 20 or so sites we've got now, they will provide redundancy across our 50,000 meter points. So in terms of concerns customers had about this being a rollout of 5G or a cellular, it's absolutely not. It's a license-free, unregulated spectrum. And as I say, it's incredibly low power compared to even Manx radio. We're in the sort of milliwatts, and Manx radio and BBC TV are up there in sort of tens of watts. So in terms of health and safety, we're absolutely sure there is absolutely nothing for people to be worried about. Promised a view of the island. So this was probably a few weeks old now, and since then we've added 2 sites, one up in Onken and a further site in Ramsey. There'll be another couple of sites to come for infill, just to give that initially resilience to the system, but also some of those harder to reach areas, like of Dolby, where we know mobile phone signal or Tetra, the police and emergency services system has struggled with coverage. But certainly from what we're seeing, we've got great coverage. It's despite being a low power, it's designed for sending small packs of data. We can't stream videos or do CCTV through this, but what we can do is reach underground and collect small bits of information and send that back, which is effectively your meter consumption and your meter bill data. Our third partner in this program is a company called Hildebrand, also based out of London, and their sort of key role in this is our new prepayment system, but they're also providing our mobile apps and our meter data management portal. So they take all the raw data from Trilliant. They then process it and present it in some of the screens you've got there in front of you. So the left-hand image is the consumption for a month in this year. You can go down to 30-minute data there, and the other screenshot is of the prepaid customer, just showing you're in emergency credit. Press this button to top up now. Kind of average consumption. As I say, we can start presenting carbon shortly on this as well. For those who sort of are looking for that, or just really showing information in pounds and pence. But the other bit is taking all that metering data and presenting that for bills for credit customers. But these detailed views for energy information to allow customers to make better choices about when and where they use their power. In terms of milestones, the sort of 5 phases ahead of us. We've literally got the last few days of system testing before we start end-to-end testing model office. So at that phase, we'll be doing mock installations, seeing how the guys, well, initially how we send appointment information out to customers. Does that process work? Does the SMS reminder system work? Do the guys get into site when they've got their mobile workforce tools? Does that work in the field? And then right through to onboarding meters, onboarding prepaid customers. And then that's going to take us through to mid-August. We're then going to start pilot installations, and we've got intentions there to roll out to about 360 meter points. Again, this is real world bedding the systems in that have already been tested. Once that's complete, we'll move to full trial, which is what I call the Northern Plains area for prepayment customers. So from Bride, Andrews, Derby, right down to sort of Kirkmichael and Ballaugh, they're our trial number 1. So we'll be engaging with the local area, again, specifically focusing on prepayment. And then trial 2's Peel, and we work our way around the south of the island, leaving Douglas Onken, where we've got half our 8,000 prepayment customers till the end. And the reason for doing that, there is an argument to say, why don't you do your sort of highest concentration, is we know we've got reliability issues with the system, so we want to start recovering some of the key metering system from the North of Ireland, from Peel and from the south, to support those customers who are struggling with reliability issues in Douglas and Onkins. So there is a reason behind the madness, but prepayment is 8,000 metre points. We hope to be through that sort of early to mid next year, and we'll start credit rollout at that point. Through all this time, any new customers coming on board will be getting a smart meter at their housing estates. Those customers who are moving across to an EV tariff or a different tariff with us will also get a smart meter at that point. But until the system is absolutely proven to work, we obviously got to be really careful about enrolling other customers into the system. It's very controlled till we get to trial stage, and then breaks off at go live, and smart meters will be the default offering for all customers. I'll hand up to Sarah now. We'll talk about smarter living and some of our upcoming events.
So basically, we're an organisation that's never really done any significant marketing. So we were faced with a pretty blank canvas. Everybody knows the brand of Manx Utilities. We hope we have done some research. It's a trusted brand, but part of making a bit of a splash about this new and exciting thing that's coming, and it was really sort of to create a sub-brand, and we've gone with Smarter Living because it implies a journey, really. It implies the kinds of things that certainly you are all interested in. It's moving from one state to another and thinking smarter about power, and thinking smarter about energy, and thinking smarter about those, the issues that we're all faced with as part of the climate change mitigation, really. So Smarter Living was born, and from that, again, there's a sort of little spin-off brand just to sort of demonstrate the smarter pay-as-you-go system, which is replacing, as Graham said, the key meter system. So that bottom brand is what would be seen in the shops where we would still have the ability to go in and top up credit. And it's just an identity, I suppose, for the change. Smarter Living itself is now being rolled out. You'll see it if you see some of our newer vans. They're PHEVs. In some respects, we'd have loved to have gone and to gone fully electric, but as you can imagine, with some of the other roles that our staff have to play, say if there was a major weather incident or something, and those vans have to go a lot further, or sort of be out in problematic areas or whatever, we decided for resilience, really, they should be hybrids. But they've been probably on the road for about 6 months or so now, I'd say, and we're sort of rebranding various bits of the fleet, and it's partly, again, so there's an identity, I suppose, for this particular programme, so that when our installers come to people's homes, this is what they're going to see. And within that branding, we feel that there's a real opportunity to bring in things like electric vehicles and the tariffs, to bring in air source heat pumps, and there's sort of the alternative, the new technologies, I suppose, will all start to be. It's not just about smart meters. Those other aspects of the business are going to be sort of drawn in, but still very much with its roots in Manx Utilities, as you can see, but choosing that sort of iconic green, I suppose, which sort of feels a sort of optimistic thing for the future, and for the greening of the fleet and the way the business is heading. So we know, when we were thinking about this, research shows that on average customers think about their utilities company for about 9 minutes a year. So we've actually got a really exciting opportunity to have some richer dialogue with our customers, maybe something that we haven't done before. It would be seen very much as a transactional model, I suppose. We provide something and our customers pay for it. But as we know, customers have got a lot of opinions and a lot of things to say, and it's very important that we start that dialogue and we actually start to listen. So I think this narrative encourages people to give us feedback, and we start to learn what matters to people, I suppose. So very much created to promote the smart meter programme, but to support the government's climate change mitigation strategy as well. And we know that there's huge interest out there, a sort of untapped interest, really, in in alternative means of heating people's houses and creating their own electricity, etc. So, you know, we want to really help a potentially confused public to educate themselves and to find out more. So by and large, we've been very pleased with the response and the level of engagement that we've had from customers. There are some dissenters, and I'm sure you will also read some of the sites that we read. There are definitely people who think it's 5G, and as I say, we always say, if you take nothing away from this, apart from this fact, it is nothing to do with 5G. It's a completely different kind of technology. People believe that we're going to spy on them. People believe that we're going to know when they've switched on their kettle, or when they've gone on holiday. It's none of those things. We haven't got the inclination to do that. We certainly haven't got the staff to do that. So that's never going to happen. But that process of trying to understand the concerns that people might have is constantly fed into our customer engagement and our engagement strategy, so that we try and understand the fears or concerns. And we've been as open and honest with people as we possibly can be. There's certainly, we're certainly not hiding anything. We're certainly not going to be spying on anybody. I think one of the things probably that Graham and I would want to stress as well is that people might say, oh, there's I'm not going to save any money by having a smart meter. And again, because I suspect you as an audience are very committed and engaged with this kind of process already, it requires consumer behaviour change, really. So yes, just because we're giving you a new meter is not going to save people lots and lots of money, but the changes that people make themselves because they've got more information available to them, they can see what they're spending, they can see what they're spending things on, they can make some smarter choices, I suppose, and which starts to make those changes for them. And it's the wider societal benefit from that, and the benefits to the island are then become more aggregated, I suppose. Thanks, Graham. So there's been a succession of events, really, and ongoing. We've done, as certainly Ralph will know, we've done a couple of presentations to Tynwald members. We have presented to the media. We have done quite a lot of work with the third sector, from a range of organisations, Manx Blind Welfare, Manx Deaf Society, Age Concern, Live at Home. I mean, many of those organisations who may have vulnerable customers, so changes that are going to happen in someone's home really need to be explained very well. And there are some people who are really quite afraid of that, or say if you're an Alzheimer's person, or you live on your own, or you don't want somebody to come to your house that if you're deaf and you can't hear what they're saying to you. So there's an awful lot of work is being done with that sort of through events and through training for our own staff, etc., just to make sure that we're covering again, our societal requirements, really. Coming up, we are going to be at the Isle of Man Home Expo, the Construction Isle of Man Home Expo, I should say, on the 24th and 25th of July. We've got quite a big presence there. So if you're coming, come and say hi. We'd love to see you. It's a family-friendly event. So if you've got any, I think that school summer holidays will just have started. So if there'll be fun things to do up there as well. We're also going to be at the agricultural shows, and then as we approach the rollout, we'll be doing events in local areas. So as we said, we talk about the Northern Plains being the place where we start. We would probably do an event in Andreas Village Hall, for instance, where we would be there. People who've got any questions or any concerns, or they want to know how the app works, or what you're going to do when you come into my house, we'll be able to answer all of those. Sorry, my glamorous assistant's not pressing the buttons.
Sorry, I'm going to
we did a door drop, which hopefully everybody, certainly in this audience, will have seen. So at the start of end of April, start of May, really, we sent an information booklet to every home and every business on the island. And that was really a general introduction to smart metering and the smarter living concept. And as you can imagine, when you put a piece of major comms out to every household on the island, it drives opinion. So probably 80% of people are kind of faintly interested, and you know, like that's fine, and put it to one side. But it does obviously sort of weed out some of that dissent, and you start to see what those levels are, and that really helps us with our messaging and you know, how do we prepare customers for the installation program really. And this has been backed up with an ongoing comms campaign. We've got radio ads, and we work on social media. We're going to do some blogs. There's various other bits of sort of print and so forth. But just to make sure that we get out across as many channels as we can and inform as many people as we can. We have the start of a suite of animated videos, two of which we'll show you towards the end of this presentation. We've used a young local startup called Animation Explainers, which is lovely to use a local business. So the first one really just explains what smart metering is, and the second one is about the installation process. Both of those are actually on our website. There are others to follow. We've got the next one coming out, which will be how to use, how the pay-as-you-go system, how Smart Pay-as-you-go works, how the Smarter Living app will work, etc. Our website. Our website was in need of a bit of a refresh, so we've actually done a microsite which will be launched very soon, which is more about this smarter living concept, and will, as I say, hopefully give a confused public some more information about some of the things that they're interested in. For instance, even though I work here, I still don't know, I wouldn't have known where to go for the information to find out the background I need. We know there's no plan B for this stuff. We know that we're all going to have electric vehicles. We know that we're going to have to change our boilers out, etc. But if you wouldn't necessarily want to go to somebody who sold those things to you in case you felt you were just being sold to. And so, my dream for this is really that it's approachable and it's understandable and it's full of information that people need to educate themselves about the direction of travel, really. And one of the things that we want to be involved in is energy efficiency tips as well. So we're making sure we cover some of that stuff. As part of the program, it was very important to do a benchmark survey. Very important to find out what people's attitudes were, what they knew about smart metering. Probably them, like you, have probably Googled it and seen a picture of what is actually an in-home display. It isn't actually the smart meter. And you'll probably have read that the UK has had all manner of issues, and of course that concerns people. So it's very important that we understand what people's concerns are, have that benchmark, and then we can do that survey again in a year or two's time, where we can see the effect of an education program on people. That research was actually carried out by Island Global Research, and I know probably our colleagues in government are very familiar with their work. They've done quite a lot of stuff with some, with the government and with fairly major things. And certainly at the time of that survey, only 1 in 10 people believed that they knew, pretty much anything about the program. So there was not that much awareness of the proposed benefits. So that just helps us to tweak our comms and to tweak our messaging, really. So that's probably me. I said we've got the 2 animated videos just to sort of end up bookmarking the presentation, and we'd be really happy to take any questions after the 2 videos. Thank you.
Conscious we've talked quite a time, so what I'll post is I'll just show you the second video, which is about the installation process, and then we'll break out, and we're really here to take some questions here today and help. So we'll do that, and it's only about 2 minutes. We'll have a look at this, and then we'll come back to you. Can I just check that that's popped up on your screens okay?
No.
No. Right. I'll do that another way. Tell you what, we will jump to questions, and I'll try and do the technology in the background. So apologies for that. And if I jump back to Teams and stop sharing my screen. Right, good evening everyone. So I'll have a look at the technology while we get started, but Yes, welcome some questions, please. There's certain aspects we haven't talked about, so happy to take anything. Richard, go ahead, please.
On mute, Richard. You're on mute, Richard.
Mute.
There we go.
Perfect. There we are.
Okay. Nobody, I guess the Manx public have never been asked what they want. What I want from my electricity company is I want them to sell me electricity and I want them to sell it to me as cheap as possible. That's really all I want. We could include this idea about saving the planet and that, you know, green electricity. Yeah, I'll accept that. The marketing is hilarious. Honestly, until this moment, I believed that Manx Utilities was the water board. I hadn't realised it was the electricity company. Where on the logo does it mention electricity? It's I don't know who you paid to do this, but well, you know, it's just, to me, it's crazy. And the other thing is, the lady who was, you know, she was quite good. She told me that she was going to give me a meter. She's not going to give me a meter. She's going to sell me a meter. Whether I want one or not, I'm going to be sold one.
You not sell, your meter is part of your tariff and your supply. So there's no selling of a meter. It's a replacement. It's a quick replacement.
Come on, it's part of my electricity bill. Stop trying to fool me.
Yes, but it's part of it.
Yeah,
Yes. It's not additional price to it. That's what the point I'm trying to say is, yes, your standing charge covers the replacement of your meters live. So.
I mean, you didn't get these meters for free, and you're not going to install them for free. So you're not going to give them to me. So let's not get into that argument. We're just going away. It's a monopoly. The Alaman Electricity Company or Manx Utilities, or whatever you want to call yourselves, you're a monopoly. And we're paying, I mean, you haven't told us how much all this is costing, the advertising, the rebranding and everything. You know, it's not what people want, I don't think. I haven't asked them. But then again, I'm pretty sure you lot haven't asked them either. Okay, I've said my bit. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Richard. John, if you'd like to go first, you got your hand up, thank you.
So these meters will be remotely read. Can they? Is the communication two-way?
It is, yes.
So the rate of electricity you're being charged can be set remotely.
It's set by your tariff, if that answers the question. If we're talking about dynamic tariffs as a future change to that, I'm not sure where the question is going, sorry.
No, and I was looking at how one's electricity can be controlled. I mean, if, for instance, we, God forbid, that we end up dependent on erratic, an expensive weather-dependent generation like windmills, then could the electricity consumption be rationed by price?
It is something that's done now, and that rationing goes both ways when actually customers are given actually paid to consume. So yes, in terms of the UK market now, you'll be well aware that there's days where as a domestic customer with the likes of Octopus, you'll be paid 50-60 pence a kilowatt hour to use it. So in terms of concept, that capability is there. Is it on our roadmap anytime soon? Not at all. But no, that dynamic kind of market price is high, market price is low. There's a shortage, there's an abundance that can be activated by sort of signals.
And also, can electricity be turned off at consumers? For instance, once again, if we had erratic, expensive weather-dependent generation, such as windmills, it could well be that there would not only be enough power to go round. So could they be used to impose rolling blackouts over the island if there wasn't sufficient power available?
I think probably gone back to principles. That capability is there now in lots of different ways. So in terms of our 8,000 prepayment customers, the switch there to disconnect them when they run out of credit is there. If we've been close in the last few years where there's been a major incident in the UK, we have a system called load shedding. So when the frequency starts dropping, so when there's a shortfall of generation, the big system, which is the UK, starts slowing down, the frequency starts dropping. And there's been incidents, the last major blackout in the UK was due to load shedding. We've got that right across the island. So if there is a major event, the prime responsibility for us and for the UK National Grid is to restore the transmission system to build that network back up. So if we're connected to the UK, there is absolutely nothing we can do about a UK blackout. We will be dragged down, but we will disconnect before the UK blacks out, and we will hopefully, depending on the generation mix, and that is a real risk, you're quite right to raise that, we would catch the transmission network before we had to disconnect customers. But that's been there, it's been there since the subsea cable was put in 2000, and thankfully it's not had to operate, but Ireland's gone through that 3 or 4 times the last 6 weeks or so. So it does happen, but it happens at a grid level. There's not the capability to send you can't disconnect domestic customers without taking off the transmission side. There is no point disconnecting 50 customers. You need to disconnect tens of thousands. So you're looking at UK schemes dropping off cities to try and catch things, not domestic customers. So the potential is there to do any of this technology, but it's done at grid level. It's not a domestic interface point.
Okay, and say Richard was saying earlier about cost. Obviously, all this cost will fall on the consumer, one way or another, whether it's through electricity bills or through taxes. But where can we find the information on the cost of replacing everybody's meter?
So the cost figures are generally available. They're in the leaf that came out. The overall 10-year operational cost of this project is £18 million. So about £1.8 million a year, which compares to what metering costs us now at £1.6 million a year. I'm breaking those figures down because it tends to come in lumps. So we have a rolling program of meter replacements. We do between 4,000 to 6,000 meters a year. All we're doing is, because of largely prepayments and for the other benefits that we believe we can deliver to the islands and to Manx Utilities, quite right, we are bringing that installation program forward and doing it in 4 years rather than 8. So if you look at it as a lump sum, it looks like a big figure, but you compare it to the business as usual cost, it's a marginal increase that we will deliver benefits against. So Chief Minister, when we presented to House of Keys for approval of this, was quite clear. We will need to demonstrate those deliverable benefits, and we will. So as I say, in terms of business as usual, this is a very small change, but for total transparency, those costs are readily available for everybody to look at.
Yeah, it's I mean, my electricity consumption is under my own control. I can turn things off, I can turn things on. I don't need to look at a meter to tell me what electricity I'm using. But it seems to be that it's another aspect of the Big Brother taking a degree of control over the consumer's life. I mean, they're saying, you know, the advantages are all with the supplier. I mean, the consumer's not going to get any benefit of it, and quite frankly, if the this I don't want to be rude, but if this so-called climate change thing continues, then I've no doubt they will be used to reduce our consumption, whether we like it or not.
I think I'll just go back on your sort of first point there about benefits. I think you're quite right. You may be absolutely comfortable with your consumption. However, we do know there are customers on Ireland and in the UK whose health will be improved. Their health will be improved by this rollout. There are many reports on this, and I'd push you towards things like boilers on prescription. Giving customers, those that have got live in poor conditions, the information to know how much energy costs will make a massive difference to their health. The NHS in the UK, through that boilers prescription, saved hundreds of thousands of pounds. Appointment levels in doctors, hospital admissions all dropped by giving customers information about how much it costs to heat their homes, and they can make the healthy choice around that. So there are huge social benefits to this. This isn't about Manx Utilities squeezing pennies out of people. This is about an upgrade to technology. Absolutely, that's there, but there are huge benefits that can be delivered off the back of this that go way beyond pounds and pence on people's screens to know what they're using. Generally, I would urge you to look at boilers on prescription as a report, and there's many other case studies that have shown that giving customers information will mean they can look about putting things like extract fans on and heating their homes properly, getting rid of black spot mold. There are huge benefits that come off the back of this, and there's loads of case studies to support that in the UK and Ireland.
You tell a good story, that's for sure. And you've obviously done your research. But it all presupposes that we are going to have cheap, reliable, or economical, reliable electricity. And if this madcap scheme of weather-dependent electricity generation comes about, then electricity is going to be more expensive, and it could also be more unreliable. And you only have to see what's happening in California, in Germany, in South Australia, everywhere where weather-dependent generation has been implemented. It has seen costs to the consumer rise considerably, and the stability of the network being degraded. So it's no good trying to get everybody to go electric if the electricity supply is going to be more expensive and more unreliable. And I don't think smart meters are going to help at all in that respect.
Again, I'll sort of hand the table over to a sort of next question really, but I go back to that whole concept of the smart grid and the DSO, the distribution system operator. This is about ensuring we retain the reliability the Isle of Man's got now. We've got one of the most reliable networks in Europe. The figures have been, quite frankly, excellent the last 12 months. However, that's in a lockdown scenario when there's been not much building and other third-party damage. But we're and the UK are absolutely driven to ensure that the condition of reliability of supply is absolutely maintained. And you can do that by managing load, or you can do that by managing dispatching power. So that could be battery banks, it could be other diverse sources, whether it's biomass, interconnectors. There are other ways to maintain stability. And I think they're the challenges that high speed inertia you need in the network. It's about control and visibility. So I accept your points. I think the technology will catch up, and we'll see some big improvements in that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Hopefully I've made my concerns yeah, let somebody else have a chat.
Thank you, John.
Ali was next, I think.
Sorry?
Ali was next, I believe.
Oh, sorry, Ali, didn't see your hand there.
That's all right. Hello, Sarah and Graham. I just wondered if you could explain how the smart meter project will help us reach our net zero goals, so where you see the alignment with what we're trying to do.
On multiple levels, really. I think it's the key thing is how do we, regardless of concerns, encourage and develop a platform to take the sort of decarbonising of heating, of transport, and how do we do that? We know now we've got examples where we've had to constrain renewable generation on the Isle of Man because of network restrictions. They're assumptions, so we need to be able to ensure that whether it's EVs or whether it's heat pumps or any other connections to the grid, we can do that. I suppose cheaply and affordably is a key driver, but reliability is there, and equity across the island as well. So there isn't those that can afford it can go off grid and look after themselves. So it's a real balance across that. But I think tariffs can help encourage use when it's windy or when it's not windy. So there's aspects there, but I think it's really, I think Sarah and I are sort of united in this front. I think it's really working closely with government about and our public about pulling together services and offering that allow this technology to develop, and then also demonstrate. We've also got some really good partners potentially come on board with this, that the technologies are rolling out, certainly in terms of housing refits for heating, are delivering the benefits we think they are. So that renewable heating strategy, we're really keen to work with like Salford University and work with government to demonstrate that their incentives are working and delivering real benefits to customers and to the environment. So I think it's a multi-layered question, Ali. It's a good question, but I think right across the dispatch of power, but right through to the network and connections to new for us and exciting loads really. So more EVs, faster charging, what impact does that bring to the network? How do we manage that? Right through to more solar panels, more wind turbines, whatever the generation strategy is going to be.
I guess I was thinking around having better control of your data and understanding where, how you're using your energy in your home,
yeah,
and then using that to lower energy use. So in doing that, you'll lower your emissions. That's kind of what I was thinking, that intelligent data that helps you make decisions, around energy use.
And that's really what we were referring to when we said we're going to require that consumer behaviour change. In and of itself, it changes not very much. It's a meter on the wall, just like anything else is. So in and of itself, the smart meter doesn't give you doesn't make those changes, but it's the consumers. It's at the heart of everybody's household and business. If they've got the data and they can make the changes about what they switch on or they switch off or whatever, just the consciousness of it. So I say, if people don't think about their utilities company and therefore they don't think about any of these kind of consumption issues, I mean, I think it's just it's the cornerstone, it's the beginning of something much, much bigger. In and of itself, yes, it doesn't solve it, but I think it's the beginning of a much bigger journey.
So yeah, in terms of presented data, the app or the web portal will be the primary source for doing that, and sort of how does that link into delivering those benefits? We've seen it as sort of prior to COVID at industry events, these things called conferences and groups of people in a room, but people there within the electricity industry saying, I didn't think about consumption, and then I got an EV, and then I wanted a smart meter, and then I want a dynamic tariff. I think the smart meter will be, for the vast majority of people, that first engagement with electricity and about what it can do. And I think that will then hopefully help people then think about the next steps, or the next step could converse. It could be an EV, and then they go into a smart meter that way. So I think it's a piece of the jigsaw, I think. The data is another aspect of that.
Thank you.
We had somebody who had their hand up, but they're not. Oh, you had your hand up. Would you still like to ask a question?
Yes, sorry, because I'm in a public place, but I couldn't miss this meeting. I just think it's a great idea to introduce smart metering, because if you want to achieve the demand management and also achieve what we plan to do in terms of climate change, consumers, they need to understand how much they consume on a day, and they can manage their demand as well. But I just wanted to want to ask two questions. One is about, and forgive me if I repeat the question because I have very bad internet connection today, but one is about people that are not smart in terms of internet, so people that have no knowledge on how to manage things in terms of smart meters and so on. How easy is for these people to understand and how easy for them to manage, and whether we're going to put some programs in place to train people and help them to navigate this new technology. And the second question is about deployment. So I missed the point. Sorry if I'm asking a question that is complicated. But say when you to deploy meters around the Isle of Man, how long will it take, and how much will it cost?
I can take the first bit. Terribly sorry, Iada, you really did crack up quite a bit during that. So forgive us if we haven't quite understood the question, but I believe that the first part of the question was how are we going to help people to understand the technology, how are they going to use it? I think that's what you were asking. So as is sort of a part is kind of written into the strategy of talking to customers, I suppose. There will be, as I say, there are information booklets, there are videos online which will explain things. I know there are some people who are not on the internet and need it done another way, and for this we have identified quite a range of third sector organisations. People, for instance, live at home who have a large number of elderly people on their books, many of whom are tech phobic, for instance, or sort of a bit agnostic about technology, and we are going to work with as many people as we can, and we've identified a lot of them and have already done some training with them for our own staff. I alluded earlier on saying, for instance, if you were deaf and you could only lip read, we've trained our installation staff to be aware of that, and we would work with Manx Deaf Society to try and understand who those vulnerable customers are, and that our installers have had training for how to deal with somebody with partial sight or somebody who's deaf, or those kinds of things. And for some people who are technologically alarmed, for want of a better word, they don't have to use the app. They can still go to a shop and top up in the way that they always have done. And if you're a credit customer, which most of our customers are, nothing will really change for you, except that you may have more of an awareness of what you're consuming and all the rest of it. But in terms of the technology, they won't have to interact with the meter itself. It will just happen. It's basically, you won't have a meter reader come to the house anymore. They are all being redeployed into other jobs. This is not causing any unemployment either. That fundamentally, as I say, if you're a credit meter customer, nothing will change for you. The things that could change, if you wish them to, is if you are a key meter customer, you no longer have the little key, and you may have seen, if you're not a key meter customer yourself, you may have seen people in the shop sort of topping those up. All of that can be done either on the app through your phone, but if you don't have a phone or you don't choose to do it that way, you can still go and top up at a shop. There's a number of shops across the island, as there are now, where there will be the member of staff behind the thing will take your payment for you, they'll give you a receipt, and you go away, basically. So we're hoping that it's not going to be as alarming as perhaps it sounds. I think there was, I will admit, probably a tendency to think everybody is going to take this new route, everybody's going to do the app, but of course the more conversations we've had with third sector and the more we've identified certain groups of customers and people who maybe don't even have a bank account, they don't live like that, so we have to try and facilitate as best we can. And we still obviously have a customer services team here who will help people to the very best that they can. We don't want anybody to be outfaced by this or left behind by it. And if that answers your question, and you're on mute now, if that answers your question, great. And I have to confess, I actually missed most of your second question. It did really quite break up.
The second question is on timing and deployment. And if I may ask those additional questions, since I'm here, is about do you have a monopoly in terms of production of electricity? But if some people put solar panels in their houses on top of the roof, would the metering allow you to get credit on your bill?
Yeah, I can take that. So again, the line isn't great, but I think in terms of, I think the question around the duration, how long this will take. So the rollout will be starting later this year, very soon, and we will expect to be around everybody's home within 4 years. So it's about 9 months to do 8,000 prepayments, and then we'll be working around the islands over the next 3 to 4 years. So we've lost a bit of time with COVID, so we're looking at ways to sort of gain back some time, but certainly within 4 years, the rollout to 50,000 meters will be complete. In terms of the solar panel aspect, that capability is there now, and this is for where we talk about smart meters. For those with solar panels or wind turbines on their property, the meter, you get a credit for that export of power, and that will be just the same. We will be more aware of your bill, and I say we can present that information to you as well, either via the app or another display item. So, but that tariff's there now. We will look to support that obviously going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Martin was next.
I think so, yeah. Martin Thomas, but you're on mute.
Somewhere.
Somewhere.
We'll take your question, Ralph, instead. Is that okay?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Graham. I'm just thinking about the future of these and how it could change the way we actually have a partnership with customers and the MUA. So am I correct in understanding that these smart meters would allow energy to be not only consumed from the MUA, but if the customer had a storage system, let's say an EV car plugged in, then the MUA could, with agreement with the customer, actually draw down that energy. So you can actually, the MUA could be trading, if you like, with energy backwards and forwards to their own customers, thereby negating a need for fossil fuels, and we can then start using energies without emissions. Do you see it that way, Graham?
Certainly do. There's a challenge around some of the technology and standards around that technology, and that's not the meters. That's particularly with vehicles and vehicle to grid systems. But the meter's got that capability, so import and export, that's fine. I think the challenge is the UK and another some trials with OVO and Nissan is really about the control. That ideally you'd want one box which every customer could have. You plug your EV in and you can engage in that process. So there's some standardization concerns, but no, that technology, and I think that's where we see the resilience of supply coming from, being able for customers to benefit from that service, but to provide that balance to the grid. But yeah, certainly as a concept, really see that coming.
Excellent, thank you, Graham.
Okay, Martin, I think you were off mic there for a second, so have you got a question, please?
Hi, yeah, thanks. Sorry, my internet dropped out then for a minute, I think. Okay. Thanks for the presentation. It's really interesting and great to hear what you're planning to do. You may have mentioned this, I'm not sure, but I was just wondering what information is going to be available through the app. What sort of, like, are you going to be able to see live consumption data, or is it all going to be historic data? What sort of things will you be able to see?
Very early days, probably for the rest of this year. I'll explain the reasons why. It will be yesterday's data, so we'll collect meter data at half-hour levels of granularity and present that the next morning, so that'll be available there. We've had issues with production of an interface device. So for those who've seen the UK rollout, the real focus really is about the in-home display. So there's a little tablet that sits offered to every home in the UK, sits in your kitchen and shows you what your energy consumption is. That's real time. That comes at a real cost. So the home area network around that, what we've done is, because there's limitations with that in the UK, we're working with Hildebrand on this. So we're going to, for those customers who want that real-time information, so no lag, really granular, they'll be able to buy, I'll use the term dongle, an extra bit of kit that plugs into the meter, and that can either talk straight to the app. So if you're at home, it'll talk to Bluetooth, so you can view it on your smartphone or iPad, or by being on display, if you prefer to see it that way, put it centrally in the kitchen. And again, you get real-time information through that. So it's not going to be available for our first rollout of prepay customers. It'll be something that'll come in the fullness of time, and that will give you the ability to go right down to real time, or kind of second by second. There's a very slight lag on that, but that will definitely come. Okay,
and so. But without that, you'd be able to see like yesterday's data at half-hourly intervals on a little graph or something like that.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not great on the presentation slide, but if you're up at the mountain view at all, we'll be able to show that on the app. But yeah, you can see that breakdown and compare days against days. So that will certainly come. So
okay. And do you know what sort of cost the dongle will be? Is that kind of like a minimum?
When I started saying that, I knew then we asked the question. It was. And bear with me if I'm wrong, but I'm happy to sort of get your details and send it through. I think the dongle is about £15 and the IHD is about 25, I think. So we're working with other sort of stakeholders on that to look to how we support that to vulnerable customers as well. We don't want to, again, talk about managing costs compared to the UK. We didn't want to buy 50,000 dongles that the UK have shown tend to go in a kitchen drawer within 3 weeks. So for those customers who would benefit because of vulnerability, we want to try and get to a situation where we can support that. I think Martin might have just, no, still there. I thought he dropped off again.
Just turn the camera off because it is dropping out.
But for those who want that granularity, that'll be a service we'll be able to offer. Well,
that's great, thanks.
I'll confirm those costs. And the reason why it's not ready is manufacturing facilities with chip capability and a bit of supply restrictions, but that is well on its way, just not quite ready yet.
That's great. I had one more question, if that's okay. At the last climate change forum meeting we had at in the Brule Suite, I was chatting to a guy who owns a couple of electric cars, and he was saying that the charging the public charging points on the island are pretty. I don't know how to put it really, but they're below the expectation you'd have on the adjacent island anyway. And he sort of thought that in the sort of longer term, it's actually going to affect our tourism industry, which I thought was an interesting slant on it. But one of the other points he made in relation to that was that the network isn't actually capable of coping with the amount of fast charging points that would really be needed. In town, he'd driven in and he couldn't, from Ramsey, I think, and he couldn't charge his vehicle up necessarily quickly. So just that sort of general question. I suppose really that the question is less about the charging points and more about the network capacity and what that's going to take. And I suppose referring back to John's questions earlier, the cost of these things is only going to be passed on to us, like I suppose the cost of the power station. So is that something that's copable with, or are we into John's world of you turning our electricity off so that we can only charge our cars at the right time?
No, I think a couple aspects on that. So the EV network across the Isle of Man has recently changed from what would be a fairly basic charge point to a pod point smart charging system. So I think there's only 1 or 2 left of the old ones. So there's, given my experience, I've got a plug-in hybrid. Given my experience of the availability of charging in the UK, I question whether or not we're in a worse situation. But the volumes are sat with kind of a guideline. I can't remember. Mark Christian, who was a colleague at that last session, will more than happy to do a presentation to fill some of these blanks in. But the rollout of charge points is in line with those that are licensed. In terms of fast charging, there will be a press release coming out imminently about a 50 kilowatt fast charger coming on the island. So in terms of those vehicles that can take that, that will be centrally located. So again, for tourists, that demand will be met. In terms of network capacity, and there's a couple of aspects to this. In terms of the generation transmission side of things, we've got plenty capacity. So in terms of that, that's not a overly pressing concern, certainly of mine. The LV network is a bit more of an unknown, and this is where the smart meter bits come in. So what is the availability on your street, my street, for 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 electric charge points? So I think that's where we need the better visibility. We do know that certainly in Douglas, some of that infrastructure is over 100 years old. It's been there since the sort of DC network around Douglas. So how will that asset age with this increased load? And it's not a demand curve. So the cables and transformers get a heating cycle. So when the load comes on, it's stressed, and but then it cools off as people go to sleep. With EVs, that load comes a lot more flat. So there's aspects and concern around that, and we need the visibility, and I think that's where we will get a lot of benefit about reinforcing the network and making sure that capacity is unlocked from the high voltage network down to the low voltage. So, so in terms of cost of the charge point, again, I'd probably have to just suggest another session with Mark Christians, my colleague running the EV and heat pump trial, because he's got those figures to hand. So I would only have to make a guess that I don't want to do that, if that's okay.
Okay, it's more about the cost of upgrading the grid than the charge points, really. And that seems. I'm apologies to my colleague if I'm misremembering or representing our conversation, really, but this is kind of how I've remembered it. But I suppose the broader picture is as everyone hopefully moves over to electric heating, etc., then obviously the load on the grid is going to be massively increased. So if what I understood about what he's saying is right, then that's something that is going to need doing by Manx Utilities anyway. Yeah, and I didn't put the slide in this particular presentation, but I've got slides on kind of time of use tariffs. So at the moment we have a complete tariff, and you can see the peak that brings in, and that's off peak. So your half price electric to heat your home on that basis, and I think there'll be those price signals. It may get to the point where it has to be more stick and carrot. So at the moment there's an incentive to move your EV to overnight charging. But with the fullness of time and say those demands that come with the network, there may be a premium around that sort of tea time charge. But I think the other aspect is just where vehicles will get to. The EVs now coming out with sort of 400-mile range. I mean, I do live very close to work, but that's 6 weeks. So to charge every 4 weeks, 6 weeks on a new EV. So I think some of the concerns from some of the smaller cars with shorter range, they're more frequent charging. So I think that will kind of settle, and we'll get a grip of that aspect. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
I think Iada had asked a question on Teams, but we might just have to go down a bit to see. I think if you click on the Teams button at the bottom, it might have the question. I'm not quite sure. If not, then no. No, don't worry. Sorry, Iada, I can't see where it is.
Yes.
Oh, there we are. Got it now.
Yeah, I just made a suggestion, not a question, but I have a question following what Martin said. The suggestion is that Manx Utilities, you don't have water metering, and my husband works for United Utilities in the north of England, and they introduce smart metering for water. That's another way also to manage a very scarce resource. That's point number one. But point number two on Martin's question is not only if you introduce electrification all across your house, from cars being fed with electricity from the house, electric boilers, electric stoves, and so on. We have a huge stock of Manx houses that have been built in 100 years ago. So the electricity cabling inside the houses may not be appropriate. So it's not only reinforcing the external network, not the grid, but also you have to do work inside the houses to cope with all this electrification. And you need to think about how we're going to do, how we're going to finance as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think that fabric of the building is a key aspect of that change in terms of installation, but also that infrastructure inside people's homes. And living in a house that's come up to 100 years old, I've got some of those wiring issues, so no, it's an absolutely valid point. And that's going to be a barrier for a lot of people. You're quite right; it's a very good point. But in terms of water meters, they are becoming a lot more prevalent. It's nothing on the radar now. In terms of capability, the comms platform we've got can do that. It can do gas meters. It can do air quality monitoring. It can do traffic flow monitoring. It's really anything that's a small bit of data that we can use to leverage the same platform technology we've got to pick up anything like that at all. So in terms of capability, we're building that capacity. In terms of plans, I don't know where that is for government, for the business to decide on. But no, a really good point on people's homes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for us?
No.
Yeah, just John here. Just another thing. There was a Conservative MP, I think his name is Steve Baker, who raised a very cogent point. He said that politicians have come up with this net zero idea, and nobody has really considered how they're going to do it. It's a purely political construct. There's no technical, scientific, or economic means of implementing this, and it seems that there's a great deal of people flapping around, really, coming up with all sorts of ideas. But I mean, I personally think that net zero is not only undesirable, but it's also unachievable. But how politicians tend to do this. They come up with these vanity projects, and then it's the working people who've got to actually pick up the pieces. And I think this is just another case of trying to nibble around the edge to further this project, which I don't think is quite frankly remotely viable. Anyway, that's my take.
Thank you, John. I'll take that question, actually, as I'm a politician on the call. I don't see it that way at all, John. What I do think, though, is I think a lot of people can see some issues we've got around the world. And what I'm excited about, John, is an engineered solution to this. And to me, engaging with engineers, engaging with companies who do want to put their knowledge into solutions that we can start living with clean energy, with energy without emissions, I think that's a great future, John. So, okay, politicians do have to take responsibility, do have to make some decisions, but they are doing it, the information they've got for the better future for everybody. So,
well, it's well proven that weather-dependent generation, for instance, with windmills, is a failure in producing energy at an affordable price reliably. The only real option is if we do want to minimize fossil fuel use, and which is going to continue for the next 50 or 60 years at least, or probably to the end of the century, then we ought to think about nuclear energy, which once it's built, of course, produces no emissions whatsoever. It's just a pity that Rolls-Royce's device is somewhat overpowered for the for the Isle of Man. I think it's about 450 megawatts, which is what they're quoting at the moment.
But you're right,
either that or get a contract, a long-term contract with a nuclear power station to supply our power. Unfortunately, that would mean sacrificing our independence and becoming dependent on somebody else's contract and goodwill and ability to fulfill that. So it all comes down to really, once again, being self-sufficient, which is proved extremely good for us in the past, and we don't want to sacrifice that, and that has only been possible at a reasonable price with our combined cycle gas turbine generator.
Yeah, so
but there is no other way of doing it.
I would agree with what you've got to say there, John, about us being self-sufficient. I think that's a goal that we should have. I think that's a goal that politicians and Tynwald is trying to look at, and we're trying to reach out to the engineers to get those solutions. So that's what we're at the moment, John. And I do take your point about nuclear reactor. It would give us an awful lot of stable base load, which we could then sell at a very high income. So, you know, that's maybe someone else would like to look at that and come up with that idea. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. Graham, Sarah, thank you very much for the presentation. Really thought it was good. I really appreciate Richard and John's input and everybody else who asked some questions. So I think that's it. Anything else, Ali, from you?
Only that I think Graham and Sarah were going to show us some videos.
Oh, excellent, Ali. Thank you for reminding us. There we go, Graham, over to you to finish off. Thank you.
Just bear with me a second, sorry. I got distracted by the good conversation. Right, I should just try and share the video screen. And it's that one. Hopefully you see YouTube. I'll put that full screen and hopefully you see this.
Yeah, thank you.
We haven't got any sound though, Graham.
Is everyone okay with the subtitles at the bottom? I'm not sure why sound isn't working though. Is that okay?
That's fine, thanks. We can get the subtitles. Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much for that. I'm concerned. Oh, we're on to the next video. Stop that.
COVID-19. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the good questions and for your attention. And I think you'll have got the calendar appointments. Any questions you want to come back to, feel free to drop me an email. I'm actually heading for the ferry tomorrow, so it won't be till next week I get back to you. But yeah, thank you again.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sarah.
thank you for your presentations.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you.